Welcome to Starfield Explorers, the podcast where we dive deep into the Bethesda Game Studio's most ambitious RPG of all time. I'm your host, Antonio, aka Hypecaster. You can find me and the rest of the Megadads at megadads.org or Megadads on YouTube. I'm joined by my co-pilot and best bud, Clayton W. Howard. How you doing, Clay?
What's up? I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Best day of my life. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining, the world is being cooked by climate disaster. David Jones, the navigator himself, king of the cosmos, guru of galaxies far and wide. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Enjoying Ace air conditioning.
Enjoying the summer, enjoying the sunshine, the rays. I think you got a bit of a tan. You don't have a tan? Is that not a tan I see?
Oh no? That's the lighting. I'm pale as a ghost.
Pale as a ghost. Excellent. And you'll be you burn like a chicken nugget.
I do.
Okay. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for listening. Every episode we dive into a topic on the game. In pre-release, we're talking about hype, speculation, and all about Bethesda Game Studios. Today we're talking about if Starfield could possibly live up to the hype. We're coming to you 1 month and a week from launch, and it's coming up fast. Before we get to our main topic, David, engage the hyperdrive!
All right, Captain.
Why did you have to put an accent on it? That could be problematic. We might have to run that by the marketing
pirate
team.
Voice.
It's pirate voice. That was a pirate voice.
Yeah,
I don't
pirate.
In the year of our Lord, 2023, I don't think you can do a pirate accent. I think it's a little offensive.
You're good.
It's time for our Lightspeed segment, which is a quick get-to-know-you question. We're talking about what old franchise, long dead, needs to be revived. What franchise deserves another game? Clay, you look ready. What do you think?
Yeah, I immediately go to BioShock. I think there's been like rumblings and like rumors of a new game. I don't know where they take it or how they do it, but I love the BioShock series, and the last one they put out is one of my favorite games of all time. And I think it needs to be done well. I think there's been BioShock type games that have come out in recent years that have been disappointing. We Happy Few and a couple other ones. There's a new game coming out that kind of looks like a BioShock game. I forget what it's called that they announced recently, but I feel like that kind of game is missing. Preferably from the people that made the previous ones would be ideal. I love those games. I love the thematic story. I love the lore and the background stories involved with it. I love the combat, and so I feel like we could use another one.
Atomic Heart was high on my list. I was telling everybody, this is a game of the year. It looked great. It seemed like it had like the like gun combat and then the powers. It seemed like a world that was incredibly interesting, unique enemies and things like that. And it just was not very good. The polish wasn't there at all. I had to stop playing, which I don't often do when I am going in that hyped. So very interesting. I like that choice. David, what needs another game? What are you looking to play that's not around?
I just want Banjo-Kazooie 3.
And a lot of people.
I know.
That's interesting.
Or Diddy Kong Racing 2.
Nice.
There is going to be a new Perfect Dark. I don't know, but I'm going to put that on there because I have this feeling it might never come out.
Perfect Dark?
Because they're doing a Perfect Dark reboot, supposedly. And I'm not 100% convinced it's ever going to come out. So I would really like another one of those, though I'm not very optimistic about like any of these happening, and then if they do happening, them actually being good. Because there's a lot of series too that like have continued to get titles, and they have not been at all what I really wanted. I mean, if we're speaking of imagining things, I would also love there to be like a new Final Fantasy game, but it to be good, and not like what it is now.
like get away from the action-y
Yeah,
stuff, like a turn-based.
Pretend like the last 10 years of Final Fantasy never happened and continue on after Final Fantasy 10.
I hated 13. I liked 15. Was it 15? I don't know. It's gone a lot of different ways. Okay, if I can't get you a Banjo-Kazooie 3, can I interest you in a Nuts and Bolts 2?
No.
No Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts 2.
No.
You're sure?
We got it. It's called Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, it did end up being kind of like that. I like those elements in Zelda. I really do. I had fun with it. I was going to say Final Fantasy Tactics, but, and I've been saying this for a long time, you do have the isometric, turn-based, games that are around, and this happens. But I think that with the advent of VR, that they haven't done exactly what I'm looking for in having a tactics game in VR with the Final Fantasy license specifically. I just we played a VR game called Demio, and it's basically a Dungeons and Dragons, looking down at the board and the little figure characters that you're using, and when they shoot acid, it's actually happening in front of you, and it stays on the ground, and you go through the doors, and what enemies are behind this door, and where do you find the key and run over here. It's an amazing view, just like you were at the table using what I believe is the best view in VR, which is looking down at things where you're big and it's small, and you could get down low and it comes right up to your face and you could see the details. I would like tactics like that where you do a summon and Rama or Shiva or whoever it is, Ifrit comes out of the sky in a cloud and just rains fire or lightning down, and you see bolts and magic the way that I want to see it. I've had it in my mind's eye for a long time, and I think some VR has done it, but not to this degree. Things like Moss and other games that are out there have the little character running around the environment, and I just think that there's some type of spin on a Final Fantasy Tactics type thing that's going to be really good if you utilize something like VR. So it's just weird that always comes to mind, that I'm I want another tactics game. There's Triangle Strategy and other stuff that Square is doing. What is it, Square Enix now? I forget how they go through name changes every now and then, but that's what I'm looking forward to. But we'll see. There's too many games right now. I'll take whatever you got next. Okay, do you have anything a thing where you could explore space, maybe have a lot of planets and bases and things, maybe where I have a ship that I could customize and go around? That would be nice.
Yeah,
we could do a podcast about it.
Our main topic today: can Starfield possibly live up to the hype? David, what do you think?
I mean, I think for the more we see, the more it seems to be matching people's hype expectations. The last big Starfield Direct that they showed us, just the amount of crazy things that you could do with ship customization, planets, they're saying and showing all the right things. So I think it absolutely can live up to the hype if the vision that they presented and showed works as it's presented and showed. And I think their partnership with being an Xbox studio will help with that. There was a quote from, I can't remember who it was, that said that this was the most tested Bethesda game that they've ever released because they have all of Microsoft's QA to work on it. So I think the signs are bright that it will, but also we don't really know for sure. And Bethesda has a history of releasing games with a lot of issues. I think everything's in place for that not to be the case this time. If they truly are doing their homework, they keep delaying it if it's not ready, putting every single QA person you got on it, which it seems like they hopefully are. So I think it will live up to people's expectations as long as it actually works. Because it looks like a really big game, a lot to do. Tons of customizations. I think the ship customization alone is going to have tons of viral videos of people building weird, ridiculous looking ships, kind of like how we got with Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yep, we're definitely getting that. We're definitely getting some very X-rated ships, I guarantee you.
Rock Paper Shotgun has the information here that you mentioned. Literally every QA employee at Xbox is working on Starfield, says Phil Spencer. So very interesting. Piggybacking off that, my worry is that they are saying all the right things. And that worries me because we had, I mean, I've said it many times, but I believe that Todd Howard and, just Bethesda, I think that they would go and make promises and not fulfill them. Sometimes you look at someone and you're like, I trust them. They're not going to tell me one thing. I just think that they are in the marketing game. They know what to say to sell it. That's what I believe. And I just don't trust enough that, again, he famously said, Fallout 76, it just works. If he had just not promised that it was going to work, if just the promises weren't there and they just didn't deliver, I almost would have preferred that instead of, quote unquote, like I say, being lied to. I mean, things happen. A lot of good people worked a lot of hard hours on this game over so many years. And, I'm looking forward to it, but I think that the expectations are just unrealistically high. It's not their fault that Xbox is in the state that it is, in having a plethora of studios that they've acquired and developers working hard, but then things just not hitting release date after all this time. It's not their fault, and they just seem to be, if it was another big game in this slot that was coming out, they would have the most pressure on them. I don't think we're in an environment where people are satisfied hardly ever, even with good things. So I think that the deck is stacked against them. Clay, what do you think? Can Starfield live up to the hype?
So one thought I had, games that have been in development for a very long time, the hype and the pressure builds exponentially. The more you push back, the more delays you have, the more people are going to demand perfection. And so that already alone, not even looking at the legacy and how much how great the games have been previous this, just looking on the fact that it's been however long they've been working on it, that is going to be a difficult thing to live up to. One thing I wanted to talk about, which doesn't really have anything to do with Bethesda in general, but more of the genre of the game, there are a lot of space survival exploration games already out there, a lot of them that have been around for a long time. Games like No Man's Sky, Space Engineers, Astroneer. There's a lot of games in this genre that are already doing a lot of these things. And so the question is, can they do it better? Can they do it in a unique way? Is it going to be more of the same? I've in the past tried to get into this genre. I want to like these games. The concept of No Man's Sky was always super, super enticing to me. But then once I got into these games, the complexity and the learning curve of these games was just so daunting that I never could get into it. And so I think that's a big part of this too, is can they pull it off? Can they do it better than some of the other space exploration survival games? And can they make it accessible to a larger audience? Because I do think that some of these games that have come before it in this genre are only a very niche thing for a very specific audience. And I think that if Starfield can figure out a way to not overly complicate it, but make it diversive enough that people can have fun making penis spaceships, then I think there's a lot of potential there. And so I think that's going to be a key part of it, because everyone's going to be holding this up against No Man's Sky. Well, you could do this in No Man's Sky. Why can't you do it in Starfield? Well, you can do this. So I think that's another thing that I'm sure they've been thinking about and working on for years, trying to make sure that they make it accessible and not overly complicated, but also give you lots of fun things to do.
It's excellent points. I mean, the longer you wait, the hype goes up. And then people would, like, if it's not amazing, they'll say, oh, this is why you delayed a full year because that's what they did. It's just been cooking for so long. It helps raise the expectations, which may not help things. And then the other great point is a lot has happened since Bethesda had launched an IP, right? And people who have done these games are usually focused on a particular aspect. Astroneer, had base building and terrain and survival, and that's what, like two, three aspects, right? And then you have No Man's Sky, which really did breadth and like depth of like you're going very far. There are a lot of planets, lots of space to this, right? And it was like a focus. I mean, when you in the beginning, when you talked about No Man's Sky, it was like not one trick, but one of the main selling points was that it's like so huge. But it was a focus. And over time, they added other things, other expansions and gameplay mechanics. Whereas, like you're saying, Starfield is basically trying to say, here we go. We're going to do it all for you. And I see this as a major pitfall because I see so many articles and videos about people who say, like, oh, I'm going to live on my ship and I'm just going to go stay there. And I keep telling people, I'm like, I really don't think that the game is intended to be played that way. I think it's supposed to be a buffet of everything. And even though they're saying we will have expansive base building, and they will, and it looks great already, I don't think it's intended to be the end all be all part of it. I could be wrong, but some people are like, oh, they have dynamic encounters in space, and then you can board other people's ships and loot them, and you could play the game out as a space pirate. And I'm begging people to keep those expectations in check because I think it is a gameplay system, but it's not intended to be, or I don't think it's going to be like that expansive. I think it's going to be a lot of things, and they're not going to be super shallow, but they're not going to be also like incredibly deep. I think that since they've done the base building before, that's going to be a highlight. I really do. The shipbuilding, I think also because it doesn't look that complex, is going to be a highlight. But they're going to struggle with some things. I think that no, if this game is fantastic, it's still going to get a 90 on Metacritic, OpenCritic, whatever have you. There will be people disappointed in this game, even if it's a masterpiece. Like I don't think it's gonna be. I think there's gonna be a review bombing sub troll culture behind this game because some people just have so much riding on it failing. Is how I see the temperature out there right now. So I think the deck is super stacked against this game, and it's going to be a shame. The more I see, the more I like, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see it satisfying. The world's fickle, Clay. We're all jaded.
Yep.
All right, we're
That's
all
right,
if
man.
it's not the Picasso, get it out of here. Okay, I want the Mona Lisa on my wall. You know what I mean? That's how everybody is these days. We're silver spoons now in our mouth where we want the best and a flawless game all the time, or else it's not good enough. That's how I see it. Any final thoughts, David, about this game living up to the hype?
Well, I mean, I guess kind of what you said, that no game will ever please anyone, everyone. But I do think maybe I'm just being optimistic here. I don't feel like it's stacked against it as much as you say. I think most games have more stacked against them because they try because these are the type of games like Starfield that create the expectations that make everyone disappointed with other games. There was an interesting conversation on Twitter about this. It was actually around Baldur's Gate 3, and they were using that same metric where like most companies are not going to be able to make games like these. And it's not so much raising the bar as in like just making you going to be disappointed in other games going forward. I think that both Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield are going to be games that like have been in development for so long with so much resources that they are going to raise expectations considerably for the future that are probably never going to be met again until there's another like 6-year multi-billion-dollar developed game or however much these cost. So it's not going to be the norm, but I think these are the games that the people with the unrealistic expectations are kind of wanting. There's always going to be a certain percent that's going to be disappointed, but I think it's going to, if any game is going to deliver, I don't know what else would than this. So
it's an incredibly great point that you're saying, because and that conversation around Baldur's Gate 3, it just so happens that Larian Studios has a super passionate, talented, dedicated team that is making an extremely in-depth, quality CRPG with a huge license in Baldur's Gate, with a sequel that's coming out years after the second one. So Baldur's Gate 3 has been in early access. It looks fantastic. I've played it. It is my most anticipated game, right up there with Starfield. And basically developers were saying, this is rare, this is unique for a number of reasons. They were trying to point out how people shouldn't expect this all the time, and a conversation was evolving out of that. I didn't really look at it that way, the way you're saying, David, about let's assume that they're putting all of this talent and all of this time, and that, coming at from that perspective of this is going to be, if anyone's going to do a genre like defining shift, that it would be something like this game, something like this studio. And that is a very like hopeful way of looking at it. If you think about all that time and the delays, what if you see these decisions, like all the QA on a game? Have they done that like ever? You know what I mean? Like, is it, I want to say that's rare, though I don't know. So like unprecedented level of time and resources dedicated to a game. What happens when you do that? So, you give me more fuel to be, optimistic. So that's great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Starfield Explorers. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Can Starfield possibly live up to the hype? We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us as we journey through the stars.